Hey everybody, welcome back. It is time for another one of our Chicago real estate market updates. Get excited for this one because today we're talking about condos. We spend a lot of time talking about the market as a whole, but the truth is there's more than one real estate market here in Chicago. Today we're going to talk about the other one, the Chicago area condo market. Before we do, make sure to give us a like and subscribe because we'll be back here next month with more great tips for home buyers and sellers and investors in the Chicago real estate market. And of course, every market is different within the Chicago real estate market. So what I tell you today might be true in West Loop, but it might not be true in Wheaton. So if you want to know what's going on in your own backyard, make sure to fill out that form on our website, put in your name, email, and the neighborhood or town that you're interested in. And what we'll do is we'll send you a handcrafted report on the condo market or the single family home market, any market you want in the neighborhood that you're interested in. So let's get into it. So contrary to what you might have heard, people are still buying condos. They're actually buying a lot of condos, more condos than they ever have since probably the crash in 2008. Today, we're going to talk about the huge increase in condo purchases over the last 12 months or so and why you might not have heard about it. So you know the first part of this story. The pandemic hit, interest rates plummeted, people were cooped up in their homes, and they ran out to buy larger single-family homes. They ran headlong into a shortage of supply from decade or so of underbuilding. Prices skyrocketed. We had a probably once in a generation seller's market for the single family home market. It also hit the larger condo market, townhomes and things like that. Now here's the thing, that wave of purchases started to roll back. It probably crested about a year ago. There's still a lot of single family homes being bought and sold out there, but there's a lot less than there were about a year ago. So from about the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020 until middle of 2021, the number of single family homes sold increased by more than 25%. That's a huge increase in the number of homes sold. Now, since then, they've fallen about 12.8%. So they've given, call it half of that back. Now, here's the part you might not have heard. Between March of 2020 and March of 2022, the sales of condos in the Chicago area increased by even more. They increased by about 31% over that 2-year time frame. So they started a little slower, and they actually matched that 25% that we saw for single family homes right around the same time. So in the middle of 2021, both the number of single family homes and the number of condo sales had both increased by about 25%. The difference is single family homes started to taper off, whereas condos kept on trucking up to about a 31% increase. And that was in March. They've fallen, 3 or 4% since then, but there's still a lot of condos being bought and sold all around the Chicago area. So why is the market for single family homes grabbing all of the attention? Well, maybe it's because even though there was an even bigger increase in the number of condos sold, the prices for condos didn't increase quite as much. Let's look at that. Between March of 2020 and July of this year, the prices for single family homes have skyrocketed. They've gone up 26.4%. That's quite a bit for 2 years. Meanwhile, condo prices are up about half of that, about 13%. That's still incredible for 2 years, but it's not as much. So what's going on there? Well, to understand, I think we need to zoom out a little bit more. So let's look at single family home prices over the last 10 years. Now here are condo prices over the last 10 years. You'll probably notice they look somewhat similar, but if you look closely, they're not exactly the same. Here's what happened. Single family home prices increased about 53% from the bottom of the market after the recession, which was kind of early 2012, increased about 53.7% from then until March of 2020. Okay, so that's not bad. That's a decent increase for 8 years or so. So for the first 8 years of the last decade, condo home prices were increasing a lot faster than single family homes. And then once we hit the pandemic, single family home prices started increasing faster than condo prices. So let's zoom all the way out. We'll look at the first 8 years and the last 2 years all together. From their bottom in 2012 until today, condo prices increased 95.8%. From their bottom in 2012 until today, single-family home prices increased 94.3%. So when you put it all together, they've risen by about the same amount over the last 10 years. It's very interesting that condos got off to a faster start, and then even as the sales of them increased dramatically over the last 12 months, the prices didn't quite keep up. There could be a lot of reasons for this, but here's what I think is going on. In March of 2020, a Chicago area condo cost $208,000, and a house cost $270,000. So there's a $62,000 difference between a condo and a house on the median across the board. Today, a condo costs $235,000 and a single family home costs $340,000. So now there's more than a $100,000 difference between a condo and a single family home. 2 years ago, it was a $62K difference, and today it's over a $100,000 difference. Even with inflation at 9%, which it only has been for a year, it should have taken at least 5 years to increase the gap by that much. So prior to the pandemic, houses were underpriced compared to condos. Here's why. Now I know Gen Z's having their moment. They got the best TikTok dance moves. But millennials, maybe I'm biased, we're still the biggest generation on the books, and that's just raw numbers. And right now, millennials are moving out of their peak condo buying years and into their peak single family home buying years. Around here, we call this the Chicago real estate circle of life. So here's how it goes. You graduate from a Big Ten university, get a great job, and you rent an apartment here in Chicago. You get married, you buy a 2-bed, 2-bath, maybe a duplex down. You run out of room for your family in that space, and you want public schools that are affordable. So you sell the condo in the city, and then you buy a single family home in the suburbs. Now we've talked extensively about how the pandemic fast forwarded this process. You can check out some of our older YouTube videos on that. And by this point, you know that created a huge spike in demand for houses in the suburb. But what it also did was create a lot of supply of condos in the city. Now that created enough of a condo supply so that younger buyers who are purchasing condos as their starter homes didn't face quite the same seller's market that us older millennials did, who were selling those condos and buying houses in the suburbs, because there was nothing to create that increase in supply of single family homes. Probably because a lot of the people who might have sold those weren't really comfortable having showings. They didn't necessarily want to downsize at that time. They had the bigger place. That's what they wanted during the pandemic. So what we had was a bunch of millennials who were just about to sell their condos over the next 5 years and transition to larger houses over those same 5 years. And then the pandemic came along and crunched all of that into 2 years. So we got 5 years of appreciation for single family homes in 1 year. So don't be surprised if the single family home market is a little softer for the next 2 or 3 years, starting maybe in 2023 at some point. We've been talking about that a decent amount. And yes, people are still buying condos. In fact, they're buying more than they ever have before. We might say condos are coming back in style after a brief period of being on the outs early in the pandemic. And we must always caution you that these trends are regional, right? So a condo in Glen Ellen is not the same as a condo in Lakeview. So if you want to know what's going on with the condo market or the single family home market in your own backyard, fill out that form on our website, name, email, area you're interested in. We'll send you that handcrafted report. And again, we'll be back here next month, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss us. Sign up for those alerts. Give us a like if you liked it. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. We'd be happy to answer them. And we'll see you back here next month with our Chicago real estate market update.